All right. Well, I see it's now 6:30, so I'll call our Sandy City Council work session to order. Jeff, will you call the roll?
Councillor Petzold.
Here.
Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Hamblin.
Present.
Councillor Lee.
Here.
Councillor Exner.
Here.
Councillor Schultz.
Here.
And Mayor Pulliam.
Here. Well, I won't jinx us and say that we have a short meeting, but we do have a light agenda this evening. And let's do a quick review of it. We have our city council minutes in the consent agenda. And then under old business, we have awarding our CMGC contract for our collection system rehabilitation. Any questions on those items for staff before we get into that meeting tonight? All right. With that, let's jump into this work session. Carl, we can't start till 7 anyways. But let's jump into this. Our multifamily manufactured home park tenant utility bill assistance program. Thanks for looking into that, staff. I know we had some conversations about this when we first started up our utility assistance program. Jordan, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, I'll let Mike take the lead, but like you said, Mayor, this is continuing our effort to look at an assistance program for our utility bills, and this includes some work that Mike did in reaching out to multifamily and the manufactured home parks to see if utility bills had an effect on their rents, and some options that we can look at. And some data on that, and then also another chance to kind of update the council on where we're at with the impact of the coronavirus on our utility funds and the revenue that we're collecting because of the suspension of the late fees and the turnoffs. And we have some data in there. It breaks down the impact by utility. So I'll turn it over to Mike, and then Tyler's also here to help answer the questions about the program on the financial side too.
The council adopted the customer assistance program last February, and they asked for a review in 90 days. We came back in May with a review. We had a few people call that were in this situation where they indirectly or directly pay a utility bill, but they're not a utility customer. This is more typical in manufactured home parks, where the individual spaces are metered and the park manager or property management company sends bills to the individual tenants, ostensibly based on the rates that the city charges the park owner or park management. And then with multifamily, it's a little harder to pin down because those units are not metered. But we had in May, we hadn't had heard a lot of concern from tenants or residents of manufactured home parks. I think we had 2 calls, and we had 1 landlord who was concerned about the impact of the increased sewer rates on his renters. But that was about it. Then at that meeting in May, the staff indicated we'd try a survey of manufactured home park managers, property managers, and multifamily apartment building managers. And we sent out, I think we sent out 90 surveys, and we got had a very low response rate. We got 10 surveys back. But there's some of the information that's in your packet kind of interesting. Most of the managers had not adjusted their tenants' rent to cover the increased cost of sewer service. They have not adjusted their rents to cover the public safety fee. And then about half of them indicated that they did or did not plan to adjust their tenants' rent to cover the cost of these 2 programs. We did find out that about a little more than half of the apartment owners did accept HUD housing vouchers, which includes a subsidy, a utility subsidy for qualifying low-income tenants. And then manufactured home park owners, I think we only had one manufactured home park owner respond. And they indicated that they did build their meter each space and build their tenants for water and sewer service. And they indicated that they had not adjusted their rates that they passed on to their tenants for sewer service. And then we had a couple of questions about whether manufactured home park or multifamily property managers would be interested in installing water saving fixtures in their units if they were provided by the city at no cost. Everybody said, yes, we'll take them if they're free. But then when it came down to installing them, some of them, about a third of the respondents indicated that they would be willing to install the devices or provide them to their tenants to install. And then we asked about low flow toilets, and if there was a rebate of up to $85 per unit, would they be interested in purchasing and installing those? And most of the respondents said no, because there's probably a pretty long payback on something like that. One thing that was interesting, we found out that we sent out a chart with the survey that showed what the Clackamas County Housing Authority considered to be fair market rents for 2020 in Clackamas County. And it was based on the number of, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 and 3 bedroom apartment units, and same way for, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes. And most of the respondents, again, this is a very small sample size, so I wouldn't rely on it, indicated that their rents were below the fair market rents that the county housing authority has established. And then the last question was about, how many units were in we only had 2 kind of large apartment owners reply, and most of them were smaller units. And then only 1 manufactured home space manager replied, and they had 10 or fewer, so I'm really not sure how accurate that is. Not really sure of any manufactured home parks that have fewer than 10 spaces that actually meter their customers' water usage. So anyway, that was the results of the survey, and there was a really strong desire. I don't think there's enough indication in there to proceed with any sort of relief for these kinds of customers at this point. But we invited some of the people who had submitted comments earlier to the meeting, and I don't know if anybody's in attendance and if they want to speak about it. Unless we had a more comprehensive response to the survey or more interest from tenants, staff recommends that we kind of let the program lie for now and just see what happens. We'll maybe review it again in the future, maybe after the first of the year when the next planned rate changes come into effect.
Questions from council? Councilor Exner.
So Mike, what do you think is our percentage of houses that are not in the low flow? Because I'm sure, I don't know what the time might be, but I've got a 1999 house, and it came with low flow. How much do you think the percentage of the city is in toilets that are gobbling up lots of water?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. That the standards for low flow toilets came out later than the standards for low flow fixtures, and then they stepped it down again, I think, recently. So we don't have that information. But most of the housing stock in the city is pretty new, and so I'd say a majority of the housing stock in the city has the low flow fixtures installed. I'm not too sure on low flow toilets, but we could find out.
Yeah. It just seems like there's anything really old, will probably have very few low flow, and I would imagine we're in pretty good shape. But I was also looking at some of the prices of some of these low flow toilets, and they're $200, $300. $85 is probably a pretty small percentage of what it might cost a landlord to put it in. Do you think that there'd be more take if we said we'd pay for the entire thing, or higher percentage of them? Does it seem?
Oh, I'm sure we'd have many more takers if we had a bigger rebate or if they were free. But then, I think it's important to know that, low flow toilets don't save a lot on people's sewer bills, other than the fact that, indirectly they reduce the amount of water being used. But the amount of sewage that's composed of, toilet waste is very tiny. Most of sewage is composed of, dishwashers, washing machines, showers, baths, things like that, so it's really more of a water conservation device than a sewer bill reduction device. But I'm sure we'd have much greater participation if we had 100% rebates on low flow toilets.
Yeah, for me, this isn't a comment, opinion, Mr. Mayor, that it's two things for me. It's getting people to be more effective with their water usage and maybe reducing their cost a little bit, but it's as much about that as it is about reducing the amount of inflow into our system as we move along. And even the new system, I'd love to see us be more efficient with our water, but if 80% of our houses are in that low flow toilets, showers, those kind of things, I'm not sure just how big an impact it would be.
Right.
And that's it for me.
All right. Thank you. I kind of have an offshoot question, actually, which is, we're going to be, as a council, here in the months ahead, looking at another series of rate increases for this wastewater treatment process. Are we telling some of our, I guess, our larger water users of this pending increase? I'm thinking of folks like Mount Hood Cleaners, Mount Hood Athletic Club, maybe even some of these folks that have tenants, but folks that enter into these longer contracts that would want to work the rate increase into their contracts going into the year. Are we doing any kind of outreach at this stage yet?
We can. We did last year. We did contact the 50 largest water and sewer customers in advance. I think it was about this time last year, it was in November of last year, and letting them know what their the impact to their utility bill would be, and we kind of give them a typical utility bill and what it would be under the new rates. And we got a little bit of response from that, but not very much. It's just, like you pointed out, the schools, the dry cleaners, some of the restaurants were in that top 50. But we did not get, we notified people in advance. We could do that again. We've got the same database, already. It would be easy to notify the same people, or we could cast a wider net and notify the top 100, whatever the council wanted to do.
I'd love to do that. In the back of my mind, as I think of the calendar, I feel like we may have already passed it, or we're about to pass the increase this time last year, because I know we had a big talk about it not hitting during the holidays. So if that's the case, that feels like we kind of let them know like 30 days before it hit, when at this point, I feel like we're probably 3, 4, 5 months away from it hitting after we go through our process and everything. So I just feel like this would be an earlier notification, which I know that we don't know exactly how big the increase is going to be at this point, but I feel like we should be able to allow for some ballpark, just a heads up is kind of what I'm looking for.
I think we could do that. The 16th is when, I think it's the 16th. That's the next Monday. Talking to the council about the rate model and the projected rate increases that would then go into effect in January. And I think part of the communication that we can do too is we're trying to set the sort of expectation, the unfortunate expectation that there's annual rate increases. And I think with where we're at with the rate model, all the work we just did with the WIFIA application, we've engaged now with our bond counsel and financial advisor about revenue bonds getting started early next year, that we're in a pretty solid foundation now for what we can project now for rate increases depending on WIFIA or no WIFIA. But at least for the next couple of years, we have a pretty good sense. So we can give businesses a little more certainty that annually this is what the rate increases that we're looking at, not just businesses, but residents too. Because it hasn't been always consistent in the past, right? And when rate increases happened or if they happened at all. But for this project, it is going to be an annual, every January sort of thing. And it does, like WIFIA will matter on what those increases will be, but at least for this next one, we have some certainty. I think for the timing, it would be nice to at least get that presented in front of council. Because I think once we present the model, we'll have a pretty good sense of what that would be. And then that can even be more certainty for our big customers on what the increase would be in another couple months. So I think that we're talking the January bills that go out at the end of January. Is that right, Mike?
That's the schedule we used last year. I think with the workshop session on the 16th, we'll have the consultants that put together our utility rate model and helped us with the WIFIA application. And they'll be able to, hopefully we'll be able to look at some scenarios where the council can see the impacts of delaying rate increases by, 4 or 5 months or 6 months or whatever, and moving some of the capital projects around. But I think Jordan makes a good point. We've got a kind of a 5-year plan out there. There's really not a lot we can do within the model that can make a big difference on what those projected rate increases will be. But there are some, but I think it's good for the council to see impacts of what would happen to the rates in out years if we did start delaying them or reduce, not taking the full recommended amount. That's really what's, that's one thing you can, those variables do make a difference in the rates. Instead of having 5 years of 8-9% rate increases in a row, that you might push that up by a couple of more years if we delay some of these or don't adopt some of them. So that will be helpful when the consultant is here on the 16th.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, and to allow for some of these folks to understand what's coming down the pike would be great. And then Jordan, just to be clear, we're looking at a December vote, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Mayor,
Yep. I'm going to go to Councilor Exner and then Councilor Peetzold.
real quick, I did have a long conversation with Mount Hood Cleaners, and they were pretty frustrated with the increases, and they have those long-term contracts with folks down in the Portland area with their water, and they were having to eat a lot of that kind of stuff when it comes to that. So I would really recommend that we do that as early as possible. And then secondly, whatever our consultant does, I'd like to make sure that we include the new meters and how that has been affecting our citizens, because I think in some of the information you sent to us, Mike, that there was some that were getting like a 20% increase because of the way the old meters were calculating the water usage compared to the new meters. And so I'd sure like to make sure we include that in our analysis. Thanks.
Yeah, we did send a note out about that, but I think what we've realized is that the number of meters that were inaccurate is pretty small in the system.
Yeah, Councilor Peetzold.
Yeah, I was just curious on when do we suspect that we would start coming back and start collecting on some of these accounts that haven't been paid for 7 months, as it stated, 240 days late, range from 240 days to 30 days late on that. And when do we stop the practice of just not paying at all for any of this? We're already 7 months in, and those numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know from roommates of my past college days and everything else that didn't pay for 1 month, 2 months, it became almost impossible for them to ever dig out of paying me the remainder of it. And, then I had to, eat that personally in those situations back to my college days. And I can see this thing happening here. I see Tiger Tualatin is just going to the end of the year. Or is it not Tiger Tualatin? That's a school district, but the city of Tiger, is going to the end of the year on that. And the number is not small anymore for our citizens that are having to pay or out of our budgets. I mean, we're at 102,000 for our city size. I mean, Portland has 1 million, but they also have, 800,000 people, 1 million people. So it makes more sense there. But what's the plan? This can't go on forever.
That's an excellent segue to our other workshop topic. And Tyler's put together some figures on, he put together the figures that are in the staff report, so he might be able to help with some information on that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to repeat a couple of things that Councilor Peetzold said just to make sure that everyone is aware of the number. So currently it's about $102,000 that is past due, ranging from 30 days to 240 days. That 102,000, when you split it up among the 4 utility funds, is not significant for any one fund. For example, it's only 1% of the budgeted water revenue, 1.25% of the sewer revenue. So, pretty minimal in that regard, but cumulative, it's a really large balance, much larger than we typically see. Normally at the end of a fiscal year, we have about 35 to 37,000 that is outstanding. So this is definitely more than what we've seen at the close of our financial periods. And great question. What's the plan going forward? Quite frankly, at the moment, we don't really have one. We, have been very generous to allow customers not to pay without really any verification as to whether or not they were impacted or just not paying. Definitely don't want to be a pessimist and presume the worst, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that there are a handful of accounts at the very least that know we're not doing shutoffs and therefore have just not paid because there's no negative financial impact, no late fees, no water shutoff fees, etc. So we have the position that we suspended the practice of water suspension in March. So people that had not paid their January or February bill still haven't paid those bills. And so it is a pretty lengthy past due balance for a handful of accounts. A couple options that I can think of off the top of my head, and I would love to get council feedback, is one, we just pick a day that we're going to start doing shutoffs again and take those past due balances and work with each customer individually, whether that's setting up some sort of payment plan for each account, whether that's doing some sort of incentive program to say, if you pay, again, I'm making up some numbers here for the sake of conversation, but if you can get, 75% of that past due balance paid, we'll waive the other 25%, or a 90-10 or an 80-20, some sort of combination to incentivize some significant payments being made while also helping alleviate, the large balance if we can reduce some of that. Of course, we could go the very strict approach and just say, here we go, and you need to pay that past due balance. I think that would be a really problematic way to go given, the large balance that is on some of these accounts. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the average was about $500 for these past due accounts. There's been one more billing cycle now with that, so closer to probably $550 or so for the past due accounts, maybe $570. So to expect someone to pay that in a lump sum is going to be pretty significant amount for the average family to come up with, I think, on relatively short notice. Obviously, the easiest thing is just, to waive it, which is not what I would be recommending. But if you're looking at just hey, let's have a clean slate and then implement shutoffs going forward, that's the easy rip the Band-Aid off approach and just start, heading forward in 2021. But there is some rate revenue that would be lost in that regard, and that's not something we've done in the past. As I mentioned before, we have a policy that past due balances remain with the property. So, these are all recorded as liens. So if we went down the path of writing things off, that would be something very new for us. And we would have to, look at the long-term financial impacts of that before we made a final decision.
My take is I just hate making a decision on this tonight. And,
Sure.
and the reason for that is because we're sitting here Monday night before an election. We're not quite sure what the political dynamics are going to look like 2-3 weeks from now. We could have Congress talking about a completely new COVID relief plan. We could also be hearing rumblings of, after a January installation of a new president with a working Congress, a new plan. I mean, I just feel like over the next 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're going to learn a lot about federal dollars coming in on COVID relief that we maybe don't know of right now that could help this decision. Because if we get a lot more federal funds coming in for COVID relief dollars, I mean, that could probably take care of this problem for us to a large extent, could it not?
Depending on the guidelines that are issued with whatever, sort of new package or proposal comes forward, then absolutely. The other option that I didn't mention too is that instead of waiving those balances, the general fund just cut a check to the utility funds and pay those past due accounts. Again, not ideal because that's coming out of contingency for the general fund, but that would be one other option. In a perfect world, we'd see some relief from the federal level that could actually either provide revenue replacement for local governments, which is not the case for the current CRF funds that we have. And then we could institute our own program as far as, paying utility balances without having to have a middleman involved, or direct payments to families. Again, if there was another round of that, putting in some more rigorous guidelines on our own to ensure that people receiving some federal assistance are actually using it for past due accounts.
Councillor Lee, did you have a hand up? If so, I'm going to go Councillor Lee, then Smallwood, then Exner.
Yeah, I had thought about this a little, and I was thinking that if by the end of January we know what the playing field looks like a little better, that we should have some kind of a annual repayment plan, because if people are already $50-$60 a month behind, they're going to need a little bit of time to stretch that out. The other thing is that Ant Farm does have a utility payment plan. And if we look at that when we're looking at our business grants and move some money over there, then that will help them and that will help us too.
Perfect. Definitely agree. Councillor Smallwood.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not really a fan of just expunging the total debt. One, I don't think that's fair to the rest of the ratepayers, in the city who have been paying their bills. I do think, if we have some people that are really in some financial dire straits, we can look at those, on a case-by-case basis. And I like your idea of working with a plan with people, but I don't like the idea of just completely wiping the slate clean.
Agree. Councillor Exner.
Yeah, real quick, I agree with both Jan and Laura. But also, this is not just a utility issue. There's a lot of folks that are not paying their mortgages. I think this is a little bigger issue than just the water utility bills that we have in our city. So I'm sure that the state, I just pushed the button by mistake. So I'm sure the state's going to have some kind of conversation with us as well. So that's all.
I thought maybe Jeff had the controls and took care of our Exner problem.
Hey now, come on.
Well, what I'm hearing from everybody is that yes, this is an issue that we want to address probably after we learn a little bit more information at our next council meeting. I'm hearing that A, we want to address it, and B, with some kind of payment plan that allows folks through a period of time to make payments. But we also don't, we're leaning against us just saying, relieving of all of the debt, because we don't think that's fair. But so we want some kind of payment program through a nice, runway course of time that we'd like to review probably here in the next 30 days. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Cool. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close our work session. And look at this timing, folks. Here at 7 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and open our Sandy City Council meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Allegiance
of the
to
United
the
States
flag
of America,
of the United
and
States
to
of
the
America,
republic for which
and to the republic for which it stands,
under
one
God,
nation,
indivisible,
under God,
with liberty and
indivisible,
justice for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Counselor Lee, I'm not sure if you and I were synchronized on that, but Jeff and I certainly were on the pledge this evening. That's like we've been practicing that, Jeff. That was good.
Like month 9
That's
now,
right.
yeah.
Will you please call the roll?
Here.
Councillor Pietzold. Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Hamblin.
He's here. Kind of.
Yeah. I see him. Yep.
Here.
Councillor Lee.
Here.
Councillor Exner.
Here.
Councillor Schultz. Mayor Pulliam.
Here. Well, welcome everyone. Per our usual start of the meeting, we'll do a quick review of what we're going to be doing this evening. It is a light agenda. We will go to any changes to the agenda. We will then go to public comment. I will read directions at that time, but basically if you'd like to participate in any public comment, that is your time to do so. You will want to click the raise hand button when it's time and wait to be recognized. If you're calling in via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand. We'll then go to the consent agenda, which has our Sandy City Council meeting minutes from our last meeting. Under old business, we have an award of the CMGC contract for the collection system rehabilitation project. We'll then go to our report from our city manager and then committee and councilor reports. Is there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we will go to public comment. Again, this is your time to participate in public comment to issues facing the council. If you're participating online, now is the moment to click the raise hand button and wait to be recognized. Otherwise, if you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. You'll want to state your name and address for the record, and you'll be provided 3 minutes. Jeff.
Okay, just taking a look at the list of attendees. And Mayor, I do not see any raised hands.
All right, we will then move on to our consent agenda. Unless there's discussion by council, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilor Pietzold and a second. It was by Councilor Hamlin. He had it this time. He did, Councilor Schultz. I'm sorry. You know, you both only have a couple more meetings for this competition. So with that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, a nay or a thumbs down. Motion carries. Under old business, award the CMGC contract for the collection system rehabilitation project. I'm guessing that's you, Mike. And you're muted, sir.
Oh, thank you. This is the contract that was before the council at the October 26th meeting. We received a protest earlier that day, and based on the city attorney's recommendation, we did not award the contract conditionally pending the outcome of the protest. Since then, we've responded to the protest, resolved it, and we're in a position to award the contract tonight. This is the contract is split into 2 phases. Phase 1, where the contractor will do the inspection and analysis of the sewers in basins 2 and 8, develop a work plan, and then negotiate a guaranteed maximum price and scope of work with the city. And the council will have an opportunity to review the guaranteed maximum price and scope of work at a later, sometime next spring, once the initial analysis work has been completed. So you'll see the and that will be the bigger number of the 2, and you'll have a chance to review that as well in the spring. So this is funded with a state revolving loan fund from DEQ and some private money, since DEQ will not fund work. I'm sorry, with some bond proceeds, since DEQ will not fund work with SRF funds on private property. So the private lateral portion of it will be funded by debt. It will be part of the larger debt issue for the new wastewater treatment plant project. So the staff recommendation is to authorize the staff to enter into an agreement with Oxbow Construction for the CMGC services for the collection system rehab project.
Any questions or discussion or a motion by council? Looking for a motion if there's no questions. So on the first page of the link under recommendation.
I'm not sure if I can remember all the details, but I'll move that we approve the staff moving forward on the contract.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilor Exner, a second by Councilor Lee. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Opposed and nay or a thumbs down. Motion carries. Councilor Schultz, I'm disappointed. I thought you were going to be more on it than that with that second.
I was trying to get the first and I was all lost in reading it all and I lost the whole.
Just slide it through.
Slide it through this time. Motion carries. Report from the city manager, Jordan.
Thank you. Actually, that's a sort of a nice milestone there, approving, I think, really the first construction contract for our wastewater improvement system. I think it was back in July that the council approved the construction manager general contractor contracting method, and so this was the sort of result of that process, and so now we have our first contract for moving forward on this project, which is actually pretty exciting. It's been a lot of planning work, a lot of kind of nuts and bolts stuff in the background, and now you know, we're starting to actually do some real stuff. And then coming up next month or next meeting will be another contract for the wastewater treatment plant. So yeah, it's good to see some movement on that. And earlier in the meeting tonight, we did talk about the rates and the funding plan and WIFIA. So a lot of activity still going on with our wastewater improvements. First, well, I guess second now, but I did want to poll the council and see if November 30th would work for a special city council meeting. I realize it's after Thanksgiving, the Monday after Thanksgiving, and it would be just one item for the Bull Run terrace development. It's a comp plan amendment, proposed development subdivision that it would be, I think it would be more productive to have on its own night, given the agendas are going to be rather full here going through the end of the year. So that would be a Monday night, 6 or 7, up to the council on when you want to start that, or mayor. But I've heard from a couple councilors, just seeing if the rest be able to make that virtual meeting. Good. Okay.
You're messing up my meeting countdown.
We'll try to fit a few more in for you.
Counselor, just believe me, when you see these future agendas, you're gonna want the extra night. They're pretty gnarly.
I think it's a good idea if it's something large. If we can, I know how some of those have been in the past. That, you know, having a dedicated night would be good for the other agenda items that would be trying to be smashed in there. So,
Yep.
Plus we got to get Bethany and John a few more, you know, meeting nights virtually here with us.
That's right. Counselor Schultz.
I am going to be a maybe. I think we're going to be out of town and I'm unsure of the internet situation.
Okay.
But I will let you know.
Okay, thank you. And depending where you're at, I'm sure you're going to want to join us for that.
I mean, it depends. I'm going to be with my kids, so, you know.
Yeah. Counselor Lee.
Yeah, I listened to the 2 reports that went before the Planning Commission. I think we really do need a separate night for that. It's going to be a long discussion.
Yes.
A lot of good work has already been done between the first and second hearing.
Yeah, a lot.
Any preference on 6 or 7 p.m., Mayor?
I like 6 so we can get out of there.
Yeah, do it earlier.
Wait, Lori was saying 7, Lori?
Lori was saying 7 and the weirdest 7 finger count I've
So
ever
you're
seen.
European 7, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
6.
I feel like we're leaning towards 6. Sorry. Yeah.
And then we're looking to, thank you to Councilor Exner for reaching out about this with the Clackamas River Basin Council. And so we're looking for doing a tour, speaking of wastewater again, of our existing treatment plant the week of November 16th. Still waiting to firm up a definitive date and time for that. But I think it would be sometime that week, not on Thursday, but sometime that week. And if any councilors would like to attend that, we'll share that information. And then there'll be further workshops. I think we're going to do some more outreach with the watershed councils, and maybe look at another joint work session pending their availability and interest, but with the city council as we get closer to an amendment to our facilities plan. So that would be the amendment to add the Roslyn Lake discharge alternative, as we get the reports on those technical and feasibility studies. So that would be after the year though. So I think this is a good interim step. So it was a suggestion by Councilor Exner to we've been, more involved with the Sandy watershed, given, the work on the alternative discharge analysis. And I think, we got the contract that for the design and engineering work on the treatment plant coming up, and we've done a lot of improvements over the last year. I think it'd be good to share that and tour the plant again now that we're back in the winter, or I guess fall. It's not winter. Actually, it was like summer today. So, and then it's been a long election season. I think tomorrow is a date we all been looking forward to for a while, and I'm sure other people have things to say about that. But I think we're all looking forward to getting beyond and getting back to business and some sense of normal. 2020 has been quite the year. But and we had a conversation recently with the mayor, Jeff and I, and we're talking about goal setting and that process in the new year. And I think that's I'm looking forward to that, sort of thinking ahead, and we have the budget to look forward to as well. So a lot of good things ahead of us, but just hopefully one more hurdle through 2020. That's it for me tonight. Thank you.
One quick question for you before we let you off the hook, as I noticed that the agenda didn't have staff reports section on their link. Was that intentional, or that's not something we're looking to do away with, is it?
No, we just post those on the second meeting of the month. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't noticed that before. Here, I thought I got you. Dang it.
I thought it was on every one, but you only updated them on the second. But whatever.
We can keep it on there. We just update it after the second meeting or in the middle of the month. So yeah.
All right. We love those, Jordan. We like those. I can think of 2 or 3 things we've done this year off of those reports alone. We like gleaning little informational things off of them.
And I like it when the departments actually update them.
Right.
It's been a couple months since we talked about the staff report, so we were
That's right. All right. Okay. With that, committee and counselor reports. Counselor Schultz.
Yeah, library board is meeting this Wednesday. And I just want to do a shout out to the trick or treat trail because it was super fun. I'm really glad they were able to figure out a way to still put that on. And my kids got just a ridiculous amount of candy, so they were thrilled. So it was a really nice little bit of normalcy, I guess, for this year. So we appreciated it a lot. And that's all I've got.
You say we appreciated it because you guys stole the candy, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
That's what I thought. Counselor Exner.
Fell asleep there for a second. I was taking my senior nap. So anyway, that was supposed to be a joke, but anyway, you guys missed it all. Yes, the tours for the Clackamas Watershed Council, they're really pretty roundabout, checking out all the things that we've been doing with the old treatment plant. And so I know there's a number of folks there that are very interested. They called me a couple times trying to figure out how much, what, and so on. I did pass along Jordan's list of things that we've done. Was it Jordan or Mike's list of things that we've done out there and have planned to do? So they're pretty wound about that, positive about it. On the other hand, the Sandy Watershed Council has a lot of interest in this as well, getting a tour of some kind. So Jordan just had a conversation this morning from one of the committees that I was looking at, trying to help out. They're pretty wound about the fact that it might be in Roslyn Lake. That's a pretty exciting piece for them. I suspect that will be their preferred alternative in any kind of input they give us. But I also think that both councils should be able to help us out if ever we need, again, some sort of letter, some sort of support. I continue to get interactions from both sides about wanting to support our improvements. And so there's a lot of positiveness there. One other thing I found, I got a client came into my office this afternoon and wanted to know where in the dickens could he find a place to get help because he couldn't find where to replace his voting pamphlets. He got the brochure, but didn't get any ballots. There it is, not pamphlets, pamphlets. So I know with the library closed and the city hall closed, it's got to be the county that helps out people. Is that right? Does anybody know for sure?
Yeah, I would also refer them to a hotspot and to go to the Clackamas County elections page.
I did, thank you. I did refer him to the county, and I just don't think there's anything here in Sandy because we're all closed down. So
I think the post office has copies.
Of ballots?
You need the ballot or the voters page?
No,
For ballots, he's got to go to that person
Oh,
has
I
to go to
thought you were
Clackamas.
saying voters pamphlet.
Yeah, the pamphlet, I may have misstated here again. I'm senior sleeping here, but the pamphlets he had is the voting ballot that he couldn't find. So
Thou shalt not wait till the last minute.
I got 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, I think at this point you'd have to go to Oregon City directly
I voted last week.
in person.
I have no ballots to give out. So, and that's it for me.
All right, great. Councillor Lee.
No, I don't have too much to report on. We did finish our draft of the resiliency plan and the committee has it now for their review. And so I will hopefully be getting it back out in December to you guys.
Great, thank you. With that, Councillor Hamlin.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor?
All right, thank you,
And
sir.
John's really excited about getting that last tour of the sewer treatment plant before he comes off. He's been talking about it every time I chat with him.
Yeah, well, why don't we go ahead and make sure to schedule around John just to make sure he can really make this one.
You know, I'll go on one after the first freeze where everything's frozen solid, but I'm not going in there on a 100-degree day. Councillor Exner, Councillor Peetzold climbing on mountains of poo. That was disgusting. 100-degree day, and these guys are like, this is great.
No,
I'm dry heaving over the corner.
Fun. Councillor Smallwood.
John, I think we need to get you a t-shirt before you leave council that says, I survived the water treatment plant tours. Yeah. I really don't have any report either. I do have a question though, Chief Roberts, since you are on tonight and you're like, oh boy. So I'm just curious if you guys, we've seen a very large influx in homeless people in the community over the last couple months, and is definitely affected our call volume. So I'm just wondering if you guys are seeing the same thing and if it's becoming a public safety problem.
Councillor Smallwood, yeah, we are seeing some of the same things, and a lot of this is a lot of the folks that we're coming in contact with are coming from the metro area, mostly because of what's going on down there right now. It hasn't gotten to the point for us where we can manage that, but we have seen an uptick in some of the camps that we've been having to abate and post and things like that. And also, it's a little bit of a struggle depending on where they're at. Some of these folks are staying on properties that are owned by ODOT, and going through them is a little bit of a challenge. So we've seen some of that too, but it has, like I said, it hasn't gotten to the point where we can't handle it, but it is affecting us, yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I noticed we have a tent there across the street from the new gas station on Orient, just right there along the highway as well. So it's definitely becoming more prevalent. Thanks for your for the info. And that's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Peetzel.
Yeah. So OBAC, Oregon Broadband Advisory Council, submitted their biannual, every other year, report to the state legislation last week. And so that was good to have done. A lot of work went involved in that. Feel really excited about that. It's, I don't know, 140 plus pages of riveting information about broadband. So in our state, that was my joke, like Carl's joke. It didn't go over very well. Anyway.
We're just muted, man. We all
know. This size, I understand. Tomorrow we're having our first meeting on the economic relief stuff that you guys all so excitedly re-voted the same group of people back into. So we appreciate that. We'll be working on that starting tomorrow, while everyone else is watching the election results. And then on Wednesday, we have the Economic Development Committee meeting that will be going on, which is the first Wednesday of every month. And we'll be doing that virtually as well. So
great. Thank you. Quick report for me, just on the Halloween stuff, just the chamber put on a great event. My kids got way too much candy as well. I saw a lot of folks that work for the city and our fire department and all the different facets of our community out there. Just wanted to thank everybody for that. Speaking of our police department, we're over in Timberline Trails and we saw my daughter came running in and he said, "Hey, there's police outside." They're trying to go, "What is that?" And they're out there handing out candy and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's always great to see you guys out there, part of our community. And then just finally with night before the election, I just wanted to start with thanking you, Councillor Lee. I know you're in a hotly contested race this time, and yeah, all of us think so highly of you. I know we all endorsed you and some of the things that you brought up just tonight. I mean, it's our hope that we get to continue to work with you over the next several years, but wanted to thank every candidate that put their name on the ballot. I used to work behind the scenes and people say, "Oh, you know, putting your name on the ballot is something different." And I used to roll my eyes, and it's something different, especially when you run for office in your local community like this. And it's not something easy to do. And I think a few of the candidates kind of learned that with some of the social media chatter and stuff that happens. You know, you get a little bit of a glimpse into what it's like to serve and have your name tagged and all that kind of stuff. So every candidate that stepped up, just a profound thank you for putting our community first or frontward in your mind and your life and wanting to run. And I hope for those that aren't as successful tomorrow that people will continue to want to be involved and sign up for committees and roll up your sleeves, because we need everybody and we all need to work together to make sure that Sandy's a tremendous place it is to live and everything else. So that's my report for tonight. We'll look for those results tomorrow, and then after tomorrow, I look forward to all of us all in lockstep working together and having heated debate, but always coming out with what's right for our community. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close tonight's meeting, and everybody have a nice evening. And no matter if your candidates win or lose tomorrow, have a nice evening tomorrow. Winston Churchill said we get to drink in success and failure. So
I will be drinking.
I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.